Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 p.m. ET on Tuesday, and that means it is crime time here on A Mighty Blaze. I am your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 13 novels of suspense, including Her Perfect Life, so casually displayed behind me. It was just nominated for the Agatha for Best Novel of the Year. So that is thrilling.
Very cool.
Today, welcome, welcome, welcome. We have the absolute joy of interviewing a dear and adorable and darling and wonderful friend of mine, Erica Ferencik, whose brand new book, Girl in Ice, not on ice, Girl
Thank you.
in Ice, it is out today to endless acclaim. The starred reviews, like thousands of starred reviews, have compared Girl in Ice to Michael Crichton's novels, and I love that comparison because the mixture of research and science, truth and fiction, to create a real possibility of a thing. We were talking earlier,
Yeah.
and I was saying to Erica that I believed every word of this. I mean, I absolutely believed every word of Girl on Ice. I was thinking while I was reading it, I was thinking, oh, that could be. Yeah, that could. We probably don't know that. That could definitely be. I will babble
My
more.
job
And
is done.
I'm Erica. What did you say?
My job is done.
Your job is done. Well,
Yes.
and gorgeously so. Gorgeously so. I'm going to click over here to see everyone's comments because look who is here. Catherine Hollum is here, and Anissa Joy Armstrong is here. Sharon Carlson Person is here, and Sherry is here. Oh my golly, welcome, welcome, welcome. And if you have not read this book, Sharon is saying, what a cover, and look at that. And as you read the book, you will agree that the cover is perfect. Anyway, our new Michael Crichton, Erica Ferencik, is here today. Happy launch day.
Thank
How's
you.
it going?
How's it going?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, last night I was terrified. I don't know why, just everything. And then today I'm really calm. I'm good. I'm fine, which is good. I actually slept. I'm very excited. It's been 4 years of a journey of 4 years to get here. And it doesn't quite feel real yet, honestly. It's just sinking in, so it's great.
You can feel that passion and that research, though, that 4 years of work in this book. I raced through it, Erica. It was one of those. It's one of those books where you think, I can't wait to find out what happens, but I don't want to miss any of the gorgeous writing.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank
how
you.
did it feel when you wrote it?
I did feel as if it was tapping, when I talk about the book, I feel like it hit these five intense fascinations that I have. That and the first is I really have wanted to. There's a scene in an old Frankenstein movie, and this was talked about in the Globe, where Frankenstein is lurching. He's bloodied. He's hunted. He's lurching through the Arctic, and he's given up, and he's basically abandoning mankind. And that image has been something that has just devastated me, and I've been trying to parse why forever. I mean, entire PhD theses have been written about Frankenstein, but and Frankenstein is not in the book, but it was just that feeling of going into the Arctic, which was one of the things that was fascinating to me.
Well, I
Um,
felt like wrapping my duvet around me for the entire book because
right,
the feeling of being freezing is so inherent in Girl in Ice. I mean, of course it is. It's Girl in Ice, not
right.
just the girl in the ice, but the main character who is on the ice and in the ice and with the ice and the enormity of the ice. And I want to talk to you all about that in a minute. Let me welcome you all again, though, to A Mighty Blaze today. If you are new to Crime Time, if you are new to A Mighty Blaze, you know that A Mighty Blaze was started at the beginning of the pandemic by the wonderful duo
Yeah.
of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to keep us reading and keep us talking and keep us discovering new books, keep us together as a community, watching out for each other. And especially right now, we are so aware that our international community faces a big crisis. And our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine today. In
Absolutely.
all times of trouble and turmoil and strife, stories and connection are more important than ever to provide us with solace and to remind us of our shared humanity. And that is also what Girl in Ice is about, our shared humanity, not only now, but throughout history. And that is one of the things that's so marvelous about Girl and I. So we welcome you all here today and send our hearts to the people of Ukraine. Erica Ferencik, I'm going to let you talk in a minute, but I do need to let everyone who is here today, and there's so many people, hi Sherry, hi Janine, hi Catherine, here today to welcome you and cheer you on. Let me tell you a little bit about Erica. Erica Ferencik is the graduate of the MFA program in creative writing at Boston University. Her work has appeared in Salon and the Boston Globe, as well as on NPR. She's received glowing critical praise for her literary thrillers featuring women who face extreme physical challenges in nature, even as they grapple with internal struggles. Erica spent weeks in the wilderness of northern Maine as research for her debut novel, The River at Night. And in the follow-up, Into the Jungle, she journeyed hundreds of miles up the Amazon to firsthand to experience the Peruvian jungle. And that book is quite a journey as well. I still have good nightmares about that. Now, inspired by and informed by a month-long trip to Greenland, Ferencik gives us Girl in Ice. And she may give it to you as well, because she is generously offering a giveaway of this book, not this one, which I am keeping, but the one she has in her very hand, which she will sign to you, I hope. So enter to win a copy of Girl in Ice by leaving a comment in the comments, Hank, where else? And we will draw by the special Wheel of Fun at the end of the show. So I'm not quite sure how the Wheel of Fun works. It's kind of magic. Just leave as many comments as you possibly can, and we will cross fingers that you win. Don't forget to leave a comment, or two or three, to win a copy of the fantastic, lauded, multi-starred review, Girl in Ice by Erica Ferencik. So, Erica, I want to talk to you about fear and climate change and science and love and research and language. But first, and those 5 things that you were talking about.
Yeah.
We only got one of them. We got Frankenstein, but we want to hear the other 4. But tell us a little bit about this book, just so we know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Hank. And I do want to say it does feel a bit strange or awkward now with everything going on in the world. And I am here to provide 45 minutes or an hour of distraction with Hank. Let's enjoy that. So this book, so I was walking behind my house. I have woods behind my house. I'm very lucky. And one winter day in 2018, I was walking by a pond and I saw 3 frozen juvenile painted turtles, sort of mid-stroke, in the pond, completely immobile. And they didn't look alive, but they didn't look dead either. So I was fascinated. I ran home and I Googled, everything. What can freeze and thaw out alive? And turns out there's a bunch of things that can do that. Surprising number and variety. Wood frogs, certain caterpillars, certain beetles.
It's more than hibernation.
It's more than crocodiles. It's more than hibernation. These creatures and some plants, the creatures can produce a certain cryoprotein that protects the cells from freezing. So when something freezes, obviously it creates, think of your Manhattan or whatever, your ice cube is a sharp area and it will cut a cell. So we haven't created the technology to freeze ourselves yet and thaw out alive. However, we can freeze embryos, which is interesting, but that's only 120 cells. So there is that much technology. We can freeze the blastocyte. So anyway, I came home and I thought, well, why not a girl? And why not a girl in a glacier? And I had this image of, I just saw a foot. I don't know why, a foot, like the side of a foot. And the rest of it was a girl and she was running. And I was like, okay, what is she running from and why, and who is she? What happened to her?
So what did you do next? I mean, this is many people seeing a frozen turtle in their backyard, as Mighty Blaze says, as you do, would be intrigued and would be challenged and would be curious and would Google like crazy. But I've got to tell you that most people would not think, "Ooh, what if that happened to a girl and she was running and I saw the foot? How would that work?" That's a very writerly thought process.
Well, what's so true, like what's rightly about it is like, okay, what if I have a story here and you need a character that, someone's gonna care about, not that we don't care about turtles. I love turtles, and I love crocodiles and woolly caterpillars and so on. But
what story came out of this? What is the basic story of Girl in Ice?
So the basic story is kind of three sentences. And the first one is, it's about Val, who is an American linguist, and she is tasked to go to an extremely remote climate research station off the coast of Greenland, where a girl has thawed from the glacier alive, speaking a language no one understands. That's the mystery part, the part of it, I would say. Now, 8 months before the story begins, Val's brother, who was a climate researcher and was working on this remote facility, walked out in the middle of night in his boxers and froze to death. So this guy was very depressed about climate change and other things. So one theory is he did take his life, but Val is not so sure of that. So the third thing is that she has crippling anxiety, and it's ironic because someone who in her profession, it makes sense for her to go on location and learn about these different languages. She's stayed in her comfort zone. She's a professor on campus. She goes to the grocery store and home, but she gets this email from Wyatt, who is the other guy up there in the research center, telling her about the girl. And in the email is a little snippet of language. And she plays it, and she just hears this voice of this girl. And Wyatt says, "You got to come up here. We don't understand what she's saying. You're the only one that could do this." And at first she says no, but then she just realizes for the first time in her life, maybe something that she is so good at, being a linguist, can help a real human being, a living human being, from something God only knows what, right? So she gets on that plane and she goes up there and trouble ensues.
So Val, this very timid but brilliant linguist, is called to a remote area in Greenland by the same scientist who worked with her brother, who may have killed himself, where Val is going, with this gorgeous snippet of a possibility that a girl has been thawed out of ice and she's speaking a language that no one knows, that no one recognizes. And this passion to figure this out makes Val overcome her deep-seated fear of going anywhere like this. And it's such an adventure story, and it is so riveting, but deeply in this story as well, and I want to talk about this too, is a passion for language and a passion for communication and why that matters. Are you trained as a linguist? Where did this element of the book come from?
So I'm not trained as a linguist or a scientist or anything but a writer. And so I read dozens of books about Greenland and the Arctic, and I started reading books about linguistics. They're incredibly dry. I did my best. I interviewed some linguists. Like, how would you talk to someone if you shared no base language, if there was nothing in the language that you recognized, and there were no cultural remnants? And the linguist, said to me, well, you'd have to almost work as if it were a baby learning language for the first time, just, nouns and verbs and a bag of marbles to indicate many as opposed to one, and just simple concepts lumped together. But I did need to create a language for Sigrid, I needed it to sound Nordic. Laughing
Well,
because
let me rewind to that because the idea that you all and I will tell you that in this novel, in Girl in Ice, which I've been looking down because I'm looking for a certain part, Girl in Ice, which Erica is giving away today, so don't forget to leave a comment or a question. Erica has not only written a novel, a gorgeous, heartbreaking, thrilling, chilling novel, but has created a language that's not only words, but is conceptual and has a human kind of connection and has a meaning for the culture. Let me just read you a tiny bit.
she did my homework for me. I love it. What did you? You did my homework for me. Thank you, Hank.
It says, languages reveal what it is to be human. This desire to make ourselves understood is primal. We make marks on paper, babble snippets of sound, then agree by way of miracle that these scribbles or syllables actually mean something, so we can all touch each other in the same precise way. Sanskrit has 96 words for love, from the particular love of a new mother for her baby to one for unrequited romantic love, but it has twice as many for grief. My favorite is Soka Pranayana, Soka Parayana, which means wholly given up to sorrow. Soka Parayana, which means wholly given up to sorrow. A strange balm of a word, gentle coming off my tongue. I mean, that is, that is so powerful and so memorable. The idea of language being consensual somehow, and that we all agree it means something. And there are so many nuances of it. You've been a writer for so many years. You've thought about words every day. Did thinking about language in this way change how you write, the precision?
Well, it certainly reminded me of, even as I was writing it, how, like, the sentences that you read, I must have rewritten those 50 times. Just because even as I was writing them, I was like, Erica, you're not conveying what you're trying to say. And isn't that ironic? Because, I think a big part of being human is this deep desire to be understood. I mean, really understood. Because if we don't feel seen, I mean, there's no bigger loneliness than that, I think. And I do think, when I was coming up with her language, it needed to sound Nordic, and I listened to Old Norse. I listened to,
Lynn is asking that. What language did you use as a basis for Sigrid?
Yeah, I listened to Old Norse, Finnish, Swedish, Danish, Greenlandic, Icelandic. I know I didn't learn them, mind you. I mean, time did not allow, but I listened to them because I was listening to rhythms, and I was looking at morphemes, which are units of meaning. And I was thinking, I mean, Greenlandic is so interesting because they have words that are so specific, and their words are so long. They're like, the longest word is something like 36 letters. And they have a word for what I saw the caribou, but it didn't see me, so I was able to shoot it. There's a word for that, like whole feeling of that, And I started thinking about what Sigrid's language would be like, what it would sound like. I wanted it to sound genuine and real, but I wanted it to be very specific to her culture. Cultures, the words and language reflect culture. There's a word in Japanese. It's shibui, which means the beauty of aging. And I hope I'm saying that right, Shibui. And we don't have that in our culture because we don't
want that.
We prize sexiness and youth, and we don't have that. In Greenlandic, there's a word for climate change. Translated, it means a friend acting strangely. So what does that mean? That means, in my mind, that Greenlandic culturally feel so close to their nature, their outside, their world, that this friend is turning on them. And we don't feel that way. We have a snowstorm, and it's combative. It's like, oh my God, world's coming to an end. It's all from us. I see snow, I see storm, how it affects me. There's no like not enough love there. There's not enough acceptance and of we're
And we
too much
certainly, and
we're
we
too much
certainly don't have a word, and we certainly don't have a word for
not
that. I
having
mean,
for it.
how often do we say to each other as we're talking, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because we're asking people to connect, and we can't know if they know. We can't know if we know what they
Right.
mean. And one of the things that's so gorgeous in the book, Girl on Ice, we're talking about by Erica Ferencik, one of the things that's so gorgeous about this book, Val the linguist finds her bravery and comes to Greenland to try to figure out what this girl who's been unfrozen from the ice, and we'll talk about that in a minute,
Yep,
is
yep.
saying. And she teaches this girl English so Val can understand her. But
Right.
the girl, whose name turns out to be Sigrid very early on, also teaches Val her language and teaches her a lot more. So each of them are teaching and each of them is learning. Talk a little bit about their relationship, how
Sure.
if she really was frozen in ice for some amount of time, if she was, how these two connect.
Well, this girl, if you can imagine it, and there have been a bunch of spoilers out there, but in any case, the fact is she is from another time. But you imagine you wake up, you recognize no one around you, you do not recognize your surroundings, you don't even recognize the clothes you have on, and people are making you do things and eat strange things, and you cannot be consoled. Oh, I should say they think she's around 7 or 8 years old. So she's inconsolable, and she's furious, and she breaks things, and she does not want to talk. So as much as, I can learn your language and you can learn my language, unless we want to talk to each other, we're not going to talk to each other. So by the time Val gets there, she's in that state of, absolutely traumatized, and she doesn't see the value in talking to Val. She doesn't see the value in it until the story moves along and she starts to find out who's her friend in this research center and who she suspects is not her friend. And she starts to communicate through drawings, very simple drawings, more and more desperately to communicate what she needs to survive. And as time goes on, Val is, she's still completely confused by the drawings, but she's starting to hide them because she doesn't trust Wyatt, who is the head of the research center. So there is that conflict as well.
I mean, let me just say to you, readers and listeners, Girl in Ice, if you liked Jurassic Park or any of the Michael Crichton books, these kinds of adventures that are not only cinematic and incredible page turners and absolutely realistic, but are so grounded in science, and will make you curious and make you run to Google things and make your brain explode with possibilities. But the story takes place in Greenland. And as I was saying earlier, I felt like wrapping a cover around me the entire time. I've never felt so cold reading a book in a good way. Talk a little bit about how you traveled to Greenland. You obviously seems like you were enchanted by it and terrified by it and emotionally connected to it, and it led to an understanding of something more in you. Talk a little bit about how that happened.
Well, I don't go anywhere before I have a first draft, because the most important thing is the story. I'm not here to take trips. I love them, and I'm not a martyr, and I never suffer. Like, even if I'm hot, I'm cold, or whatever, I'm having a fabulous time, so never feel sorry for me, feel happy. So I I wrote the book first. I thought I knew Greenland by reading all these books. And then I went there and I was like, holy mother, I mean, just the scale of things. And there's a concept in the book called I call it the enormity. And it's what Val feels when she feels, I mean, she lost her brother and she's not sure how, if he killed himself or what, but she cannot face her grief. She cannot face it. She cannot face it. And there's some sort of equivalent when she goes to Greenland and looks out at, I don't know how else to say it, but the enormity. I mean, Greenland is a third the size of Canada. It's 1,500 miles. The ice sheet is 1,500 miles east to west, 700 miles north to south, 2 miles thick at its thickest. And think of this, only 56,000 people live there. I mean, I know community colleges that have 56,000 people, right? So if you can just imagine this immensity and just the shapes that water can take. And
the brutality of it, though. I mean, if you go outside, the entire outside is not conducive for humans to be alive.
I mean, for example, there are tiny little towns with little roads. Okay, 120 people with dirt roads and so on. And Nuuk is the capital. It has maybe 10,000. I'm not sure, but and it's a subsistence culture. I mean, you read about subsistence, hunting, fishing. No. Go and see how they hunt the pilot whales, and they're in the bay, and feeding them to their dogs because imported dog food is $5 a can, and sled dogs they're not pets, they're property, and they're taken very well care of, but they're not your cute little dog in your house.
Well, I mean, it's a very more than harsh environment. If people stay, and when people stay and live there, they change their entire way of being to live that way. You have to decide. But Val, comes from
America,
and she's she's only can bring 43 pounds with her.
That's right.
On this cavernous jet or plane that takes her to Greenland, and she's transported to this other world. So she has to learn about this girl in the ice, and has to learn about the culture in Greenland, and has to learn about this very antagonistic, tiny little research place, which is the only place she can stay alive, which is the same place her brother was killed. I mean, that is the conflict in the book is just constant. Did it feel like that when you were writing it?
It did feel like that, and I was happy to feel that because as writers we need conflict. But I had a lot of fun creating Wyatt, who is the very spooky, mad sciencey sort of guy who is, he's been on the ice too long, man. He's been out there researching for 2 years, and when he finds this girl becomes everything to him in the sense of, he wants to know how she did it. He wants to know how she did it.
How she froze and was not dead. And it's just
and was not dead. What was it? Because he knows that knowledge will rocket him, biggest discovery ever. So, but his trying to find that out is certainly at odds with this girl's, ability to live. So
she can't tell him. I mean, that's what she holds. Here's this mystery, the frozen girl who he has thawed with sort of his Mrs. Danvers-esque assistant. They have thawed, and they did not take any video of it, which is odd. And now she holds the secret for his scientific success, but she can't tell him. And that's why he needs Val.
And she won't tell him because she smells something is off, and she doesn't trust Val either. When Val comes, Val has a hell of a time, getting her to trust her.
It
And
reminded me so much of Annie Sullivan and
yeah,
Helen Keller.
yeah.
Did that cross your mind at all? It must have.
After I wrote that scene, there's a scene where Val is trying to just get basic stuff, basic concepts to the girl. Here's a glass of water. Here are the words for water: thaw, freeze, freeze, thaw, water, and trying to ask her what it is. How did you do it? How did you do it? And so that was a breakthrough. That was a breakthrough with them. Yeah.
And that reminded me of it that reminded me of the water. This is water when
Oh
Helen
my God.
Keller's
I didn't even think of that
yeah.
element.
Yeah, but it's so perfect. But what you, without even knowing it, because it's just all this knowledge is so subsumed into you. But Val uses the water question, how water comes, thaws and freezes. And it's
Mhm.
just completely of the book. It's so meta of the book because she's really asking a big question. How did you freeze and thaw and be alive?
And be alive. And
It's
the,
just a
the girl,
gorgeous scene.
and it's a complex answer, right? And so, and so the girl can't answer it. So she's trying to draw it. And then it's all, the drawings look like something else. And so,
You can hear you all how great, how amazing Girl in Ice is, and how much work and how much science went into it. It's also about fear. It's about fear of the unknown. It's about fear of taking a step. It's about fear of history and fear of the future, and it's about climate change as
yep.
well, in a really profound kind of way. Tell a little bit about how you put all of that together in this book.
Well, I also think it's also about grief and fear. And everyone in the book is grieving for someone. Val is grieving for her brother. Jean, who is Wyatt's assistant, she's this older woman. She's kind of the grunt mechanic, cook. She's grieving her father. Her
Husband.
daughter who died in a car crash. Wyatt's grieving himself and his lack of success, quote unquote. And Nora and Raj are another couple that come in. They're grieving the loss of their child. So when this girl has a special meaning for them too. But I think I like books. I like to write books where people deal with fear because I guess it's one of my issues. I think about fear a lot. I had to deal with fear when I went to the Allagash territory in northern Maine for the River at Night. I mean, I had to go to this place and talk to these men who live off the grid. Uh, but I learned about something about fear with each trip. Like for the River at Night, I learned to trust my instincts with people that, of course, vet the person, don't, I don't want to be hurt or whatever. So, vet the person, but listen to them. And their stories were incredible. And by the end of it, I was just like respecting them so much for their individuality and their fierce independence and so on and so forth.
But in Girl in Ice, the fear is so intense because the enormity, as you call it, is so huge. But it's almost like this locked room mystery
Here's a
because
mantra.
the past is locked away, and these people are locked away. And if they go too far afield, the buildings are connected by a rope. Because they'll certainly lose their way. They only have snowcats and those kinds of transportations. And one wrong move,
Yeah,
and you are under the ice forever,
right.
or an iceberg will come up or break apart, or a crevasse will open, or a walrus or a polar bear will kill you. I mean, it's as harsh as it can be. And there
Sergeant.
goes little Val.
Right.
And
I just
you.
find that exciting. I've always loved, thrillers that take place in challenging settings. I mean, I just madly in love with that. So I don't have any explanation for it other than that, I think. But yeah, so everyone, so Val has to deal with her fear if she is going to survive and if she's going to save this girl. If she doesn't, she's screwed. She will be she will not be able to And she has to pay attention. She has to pay attention with every cell in her body to what this girl is trying to tell her. I mean, she has to look at her, listen to her, look at the drawings, watch the way she moves, everything, so that she can decipher what it is this girl needs in order to survive.
And these two characters are getting into each other's heads as the book progresses. And the book is about family and relationships and love in every way, and sort of how to move ahead and how to make a human connection. And I want to go back really quickly. Someone was asking, is this in Sigrid's point of view at all, the Frozen girl's point of view at all? And my first thought was, well, no, how could it be? And then I thought, wow, wouldn't that be really interesting? Because
I thought of that.
You did tell about that.
I thought of that, but ultimately I stayed in the one point of view. It was
just for the mystery, didn't you?
Yeah, it was just easier for me. I just chose that. I felt that I could get across what I needed to get across by staying in the one point of view.
And also, the mystery of it is, if we knew what Sigrid was thinking, then we wouldn't be in the mystery of Val finding out what she was thinking. And one of the things, I love codes and I love language. So, as Val is trying to figure out what are these words she's saying, and I'm thinking it could mean this, it could mean this, it could be, and of course I'm completely wrong. And I don't want to give away what it is, of course. But again, and rewinding to something that we began to talk about earlier, is you created this whole language. Can you hear that language in your head? I feel as if I sort of understand it now. I wish I could use it now.
I do feel like I understand it and could use it. There's a real breakthrough, and I feel that I can talk about this in the story. There's a breakthrough when Val suddenly realizes that every sentence that Sigrid said begins with one of 7 words. And she finally makes.
No, don't tell this. Don't tell this.
Oh, don't.
Okay, no, I am putting up the Crime Time spoiler blocker and saying you know more than I.
I mean, I've been talking for days, so you have to realize I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Oh, well, that's just a sign of your mad success. That is a sign of your mad success.
I hope so. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's a spoiler and what's not anymore, because, I read online, it's like, well, that was a spoiler. Thank you very much. But whatever,
Well, that's why you have me, to protect your book and to protect the glory and joy of the absolute brilliant imagination of Erica Ferencik. I know I'm putting Mighty Blaze is saying I'm Hank with the shield of spoiler alerts. And no, Erica, you do not say that. I want to save that for your readers to have the wonderful adventure of Girl in Ice. I could not put this down. I honestly couldn't. It is brilliant. It is gorgeous. It is heartbreaking. It is haunting and thought-provoking, and will make you think about language in a completely different way. I promise you. We're running out of time, so I want to take some questions.
Okay.
And remember, if you ask a question, you are entered to win a copy of Girl in Ice by Erica Ferencik. Sylvia, hey Sylvia, so nice you're here today. What were your dreams like when you wrote this book? What an amazing question.
Yeah, I dreamed about the book. I did dream about the book all the time. I got great ideas in my dreams for scenes. I didn't always use them because, dreams, a little over the top. But I had terrific dreams. I had such a good time writing this book. I mean, it just hit me on all the things I love. The Arctic setting, writing on the edge of real and not real, but could be. Science, language, and the Arctic setting. So, yeah, great dream.
So were those your 5 things? Frankenstein, writing on the edge, love of science, the Arctic setting. What were your 5 things?
Frankenstein. What were my 5 things? Frankenstein. Actually, there are 5 fascinations. Frankenstein, things that can thaw out alive. Writing on the Edge of Real and Not Real, Science and Language, and Arctic Settings. And Frankenstein is more a feeling. It's also the, and I guess I have to say it's, Frankenstein was made from the dead. When I mean, there's a little bit of Frankenstein, I suppose, in the book. Something.
Well, there is, because first of all, Wyatt, the researcher, like Dr. Frankenstein, perhaps has created a monster by unleashing a frozen person and bringing them back to life. I mean, that's exactly what Frankenstein is about. And we learn in the book, this is not a spoiler, that,
Okay.
Frankenstein is not a monster, that maybe it's the doctor who's the monster. And you don't mess with that. So again, here's a scientist who's messing with the fragility of human life, and or is it a good thing? And Mark is here saying Erica Ferencik is my fave. She always takes her readers someplace new, and that is, maybe we can pop Mark up in the banner, because that is absolutely great. Welcome, Mark. Nice to see you. Catherine is asking, have anything you learned during research that you wished you could have gotten in the book? Oh, Erica will be here for hours for this.
For hours. I mean, it's so. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Can't put it in the book. It's like, I don't know. We were in the Iceberg Graveyard, and there were these massive icebergs. Stories tall, and all the time, we're hearing these explosions, like gunshots. Far away, pretty muffled. And I asked our guide, like, what would happen if one of these broke? And he said, well, you listen, and if you hear it, you turn your kayak toward the noise, because a giant wave will be created, and you'll probably be breached, unless you turn toward the wave. He didn't say you'd live.
So you turn your kayak toward the noise.
Yes,
I think this is something that
we
need to know. And the Blazers in the back room are asking, what is an iceberg graveyard?
Oh, I'm sorry. So there's a place in this where I went, which is called the Sermillik Fjord on the east coast of Greenland. There's a place that's called by, people who live around there. It's called the Iceberg Graveyard, because for whatever reason, ocean currents sort of nudge these massive bergs into this fjord. It's just the way the currents go. And so these massive, like, stately things, like downtown buildings downtown, are like just sort of turning, and you're kayaking among them, and they're shaped by waves and wind into the weirdest imaginable, like they look like cathedrals or monsters, or so it's called the graveyard because they do melt eventually. Almost all of them do, and then in a fresh bunch are washed in the following year. I mean, it happens much more slowly than that. They're massive, so they're sort of ushered into this long, narrow.
Do you remember the first one you saw? The first iceberg you saw?
The first one I saw was from the plane, and then a second, and then the rest were from the helicopter. But you do not get a sense of scale until you've landed, and even more when you're in the water. The first one I saw, I mean, my jaw is just dropping. It's so beautiful, the shapes that water can take. I think winter is my favorite season. I know that's not a popular sentiment, but I just feel, a snowstorm is one of the most, it's just, look at it. I mean, look at the shapes, and it's just sort of erases everything. It gives us a little break. It's nice.
Well, it's funny. I'll tell you this very quickly. And I wonder about this. And I thought about this in reading Girl in Ice. And we have about 2 minutes left, you all, for you to put in your comments and questions to win a copy of Girl in Ice. I was walking down the street in the before times in Boston, in the middle of winter, maybe nowish. and it suddenly started to pour down snow, and it was freezing. And I
Yeah.
started griping. I started saying, "Oh my gosh, I have to walk from X place to Y place. It's freezing. I'm cold. The snow is on me. Good thing I have boots. I can't see. It's awful. I'm freezing, freezing, freezing." And then I thought, wait, wait, wait. You're one little person in one little place, and there's the entire universe out there. And in this quiet moment in Boston, it is snowing on you.
So
How
beautiful.
beautiful is that? And it was a completely different experience to
Yeah.
just be in the snow. And I say that to you because I think you were there as well, in the book Girl in Ice and in Greenland and in your mind.
Yeah. I mean, I do take a walk. I mean, quickly, 10 years ago, I think I discovered being outside literally, and it changed my life. I was at a very low point in my life. And the one thing I could do every day was take a walk outside in the woods. And I started doing that an hour a day. And I built my rest of my life around it. And when I was out there, I got the idea for the river at night. And it changed my life. And I think that I think it's good for us we don't even know what great things the woods are doing for us out there. I mean, I could talk about it. I think the show is almost over, but I mean, trees are throwing out all kinds of chemicals we don't know about. I mean, probably wonderful things. They're communicating with each other, they're communicating with their offspring. Um, and I love that we don't know everything about that yet. We just know, and it's been medically proven, that your blood pressure lowers, you're healthier, you sleep better when you spend time outdoors. And every, snow, sleet, rain, heat, I have been outdoors, and it just changed me. So I think it's a great prescription for everyone to
I
get
love
out.
that you say we don't know everything yet, and that is what we rely on for you
Yeah.
to explore also in your wonderful books like Girl in Ice. So don't go outside right yet, you all. Wait about 10 seconds because I want to spin the wheel of fun from the back room and see who wins a copy of
Okay.
Girl in Ice. All right, let's do it. Oh, look at that.
Oh
Here we go.
my
I feel like there
God.
should be music. And the winner is Mark wins. Mark wins. I think we should spin it. Mark, you always win, and I bet you already have this book. We're so thrilled to have you today. Can we spin again, Margaret, and see if we can?
That's
Yes,
weird.
Sharon. No,
Sorry,
not
Mark.
Sharon. Sharon Carlson Person wins. That is so marvelous. Mark, we will get you are so generous. I swiped this book from you because I want to make sure that a non-blazer wins, but we adore you and love you, and we know you already have this book. And Sharon Carlson Person wins Erica Ferencik's Girl in Ice. Erica, let me let you close by saying happy pub day to you. And how would you like the readers of Girl in Ice to feel when they close your book the last time?
I want them to feel that there still is wonder in the world, and that they are so much braver than they think they are, and in all kinds of ways, overcoming grief, doing things they've never tried before. That's how I want them to feel. Yeah.
And that is such a perfect sentiment in every way to leave us with today, that we are braver than we think we are, and these times do call for that and to be connected with humanity in every way. And that is highlighted in Girl in Ice as well. Erica, we're so pleased that you were here today. What an absolutely terrific book. In about 10 seconds, you all run and get it. Help Erica celebrate her pub day. She will be at Brookline Booksmith tonight in person. If you want to come say hi and get a book from Brookline Booksmith in person, Sherry is saying congratulations, and we say congratulations too. Gail is saying congratulations, and you, oh, thank you, you all. Thank you all for coming today. Quickly before we go, let me say that next Tuesday at 4 p.m. ET, something completely different, we will have El Cosimano's Finley Nodovan Knocks 'Em Dead. You all, this is hilarious. It is laugh out loud funny. It is so, it's a mystery. It's totally a mystery, but it is so funny and so clever and so witty. If you haven't read Elle's first book, Finley Donovan is killing it. It's marvelous. You don't need to have read that to read this. I highly recommend the both. I can't wait to meet El Cosimano, and that will be next week and Tuesday at 4 p.m. ET right here on Crime Time. And until then, please find Girl in Ice by Erica Ferencik and keep reading. And thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Erica.